Hello guys and welcome to another fantastic episode of DBD, another very special DBD mini to be precise, because today we are looking at the developer update. Now for those of you who don't bother paying attention to the news, because why bother, we are in fact dealing with a two-parter. We've got a twofer developer update, so that comes in two parts, and I'm going to try and summarize them today because I am astounded, I am flabbergasted. Honestly, guys, I think today's, I say today's, by the time you guys have this, it won't be, but I think today's developer updates have really sort of indicated a key turning point in Dead by Daylight's development history, and I'm gonna tell you why. Okay, so let's have a little look. So we're gonna start. I'm just gonna go through them. Now you can find these patch notes, well, developer updates soon to be on the PTB patch notes in the description below, guys, so please do check that out. But I'm just going to summarize them and try not to have an aneurysm over the course of this section of video. So let's begin. Now, first things first, they've made some changes to some perks. Just some sort of run-of-the-mill generic changes, but a lot of them. And I'm going to try and cover them as quickly as possible. Now, the first thing is they've buffed/changed some of the hexes for killers. Mostly these now have special attack requirements. They did have special attack requirements, now they don't. So you can use basic attacks or special attacks. That's pretty damn good. I don't use hex perks. I think hex perks are stupid. So this makes no difference for me as a player, but hey ho. So that is the bulk of the killer perk changes. They did also buff Mindbreaker. Soon to be changed on that name as well. But the Demogorgon perk now includes blindness. And that is the killer perk buffs. That's it. That's all your killer perks. Right there. Okay. So now let's have a quick skim read of all of the buffs, not changes, buffs that they have made to the Survivor perk. So I'm going to try and make this as quick as I can. So we have got Vigil is up by 10%, just a basic stat increase. Babysitter Steve's perk has now got a speed boost for the Survivor you unhook. So when you unhook a Survivor, they get a speed boost for, I believe it's 4 to 8 seconds. So a nice change, quality of life change. For the people, that meme perk is now 30 seconds less time spent broken. So these are all significant changes so far. Windows of Opportunity now has a proper aura reading system that is just permanent. There's no cooldown. They've just stripped it. So there we go. Repressed Alliance also has a reduced cooldown. I think that was 30 seconds less, but splitting hairs. And then we come to the weirdest and potentially strongest Survivor perk buff that we've seen out of this new roster of Survivor perks. Built to Last. The Felix Richter perk. So currently you get 50% of your item charge back. Now they have changed it, so it's now got an extra caveat, and this is why we'll go into this one a little bit. Every 12 seconds you spend in a locker recharges your item. First recharge is 99%, second recharge is 66%, and third recharge is 33%, for a grand total of 198% of your item back. I know! So basically, you bring in 3 items instead of 1. And it costs a perk slot, so you bring in your item, and then it gets recharged twice. Now, this does have the caveat of it requiring 36 full seconds split over 3 times. So that does have a level of sort of like penalization towards it. However, I think the sort of thing you get for that is kind of a bit crazy. Like, you know, like toolboxes are admittedly a lot less strong than they used to be, but they're now kind of, you know, you can get 3 toolboxes for the price of 1 for the sake of a perk, and survivors can afford to bring meme perks. They just can. They have more perks. 16 perks over a roster of 4 survivors is a lot easier. So this could cause some problems, and you know what, it may get balanced. We don't know. We're gonna see, but that's the actual wording that they used, is that they thought they undersold, so they tried like some safe numbers first, and now they want to just quadruple. Because that's behavior. Oh, we want to try some safe numbers and then quadruple the value. So obviously this perk is a bit niche and a bit memey still, but it might have some new value, and of course it synergizes really well with Inner Strength. So if you run Inner Strength with the new Built to Last, you put yourself in a situation where you're recharging your item whilst you're healing. So there's always that. Any means necessary now has aura reading. So when you can reset a pallet, you can now also see the available pallets that are downed. So it just gives it a little bit more of a use, which is cool, I guess. It's a meme perk as well. And then, of course, speaking of the kings and queens of meme perks, No Mither has had a buff. That is correct. No Mither has had a buff. Basically, the grunts of pain are now even quieter, and you get a recovery speed increase, which will pair really nicely with Unbreakable, creating even more of an anti-slug build. So, slugging killers, beware. I mean, after all, it's not like you have to slug in high ranks. Moving on swiftly. This kind of, like, goes into something that is a little bit better. So, we've just talked about a whole bunch of Survivor perk buffs, but here's the Survivor nerf. And a very, very exciting one at that. Hatches are finally having a small, teensy-weensy, but arguably reasonable nerf. So, let's have a little look at these guys. The hatch no longer is able to spawn when there's more than one survivor in the trial. That's full stop. Say goodbye to 4-man SWFs trying a 4-man escape via the hatch. And don't worry, they will be changing the achievement so that you can still get that. It will now just be escape through the hatch. So a lot more simple. So that really does alleviate some stress of being bullied in high ranks. Usually it doesn't happen that much in high ranks, but I've had situations where I've basically been winning a game, holding my shit together, and then at the very last second, 2 or 3 survivors escape via the hatch. And that's an awful feeling to just be cheated, like fully, wholeheartedly cheated out of that. So that's a bit of a shame, but thankfully they're getting rid of that. And they are adding an extra caveat as well. So in the situation that you get to the end of the match, the hatch spawns, there's only one survivor left, and you close the hatch. Now in the current situation, a key can immediately reopen the hatch. Bomber for the killer. There's nothing that killer can do. Now, the survivor has to spend some time reopening the hatch. Now, the progress doesn't get reset if they get interrupted, so they didn't give an exact number, if I'm not mistaken, but basically, when you open the hatch after it's been closed, it actually takes a couple of seconds to open, which is good because it means that survivors being absolute arseholes won't cause as many problems, but it sounds like you can 99 it, which means that actually it doesn't fix the issue because the survivor can now just 99 reopening the hatch, teabag on it till you arrive, and jump out. So a nice idea in theory, but once again, behavior falling ever so slightly short of the mark. But that is hatches potentially looking at, and keys potentially being looked at being taken care of. So that could be exciting. However, when behavior giveth with one hand, they taketh away with another. Now, I've actually done a little bit of skimming reading, a little bit of research to hopefully give you guys a couple more bits of information than it is currently available in the developer update, and that is boon totems. Boon totems are here soon, TM. Perhaps in the PTB by the sounds of it, due to the fact it's developer updates, but we will see. And the basic thing that boon totems are is exactly as we imagined, our worst fucking nightmare. So the way that the boon totems now work, you will be able to hear them as the killer. The survivor will be able to find a dull totem and bestow a boon onto the totem. When this happens, every boon effect that they have from perks, so if they have 4 boon perks in their perk slots, all 4 will attach to this one totem. This one totem, okay? So that means that survivors can stack them. Now, you can only have 1 active at one time as a survivor, but the upside of that is, and this is semi-confirmed, this was confirmed by one of the moderators on the forums after I did some trawling through all of the really obscure posts, a survivor is capable, and again this is unofficial, just from one of the moderators, a survivor is capable, if they find a dull totem they prefer, of blessing that totem, and the boon will move from your previous totem to this new one, which means if you find a totem at the start of the match, immediately bestow it with a boon. Boom, Bob's your uncle. Then you can literally leave it, and then if you find a really obscurely hidden totem later, you can re-bestow it without having to go back to the original totem. Convenient. Not for the killer. Of course not for the killer. So, yes, you can re-bless them. They automatically move when you do that. You can also bless a hexed totem. Now, I think this is really important because time management is an extremely important part of Dead by Daylight. If you don't know it, you will realize it when you get to higher ranks. Now, what a survivor can do is they can cleanse a hex totem and bless it at the same time, in essence, because what they're doing is they're blessing over a hex totem. So because they're blessing over the Hex Totem, they're skipping that whole cleanse process and going straight into removing the killer's power and immediately bestowing their own power onto it. Now, this also has some additional problems that go with it. If you have two or one, or I should say one dull totem left at the end of the match, and it is a boon totem, if you are currently running Noed as a killer, and there is one totem left, and it is a boon totem, your Noed will not proc. Simple as. If there's no dull totems, it will not proc. So if the survivors have stolen your dull totems, you're fucked, mate. Now, this kind of all ties in back to the main point, which you guys might be interested in. As a killer, what does it mean for you? You can hear when there is a boon totem nearby, and you can go over and essentially cleanse it. Now, it was said on the forum that it will be quicker to do that than it would be to cleanse it as a survivor, but exactly our worst nightmares have come true. Killers have an additional objective. Now, the important part of all of these changes that I've just spoken about, guys, is they are all dependent on how strong boon totems are. If they're too weak, nobody's going to run them. If they're too strong, they will be a literal nightmare for killer mains everywhere. The reason being, it's another objective on a game that already has too many objectives and too little time for killer players. So a real shame on that front, and unfortunately, I don't see it getting better for us. I see this getting worse. And this then kind of like very much reflects on the feel of these patch notes. And I will kind of move on to that in just a second, because there have been some additional nerfs to killer. But first, there is a nice little highlight. Behavior have implemented a kill switch into Dead by Daylight now. It doesn't sound as scary as you'd think. Basically, whenever something bugs out, a perk, a killer, a survivor, whatever it is that bugs out, they have a kill switch which can immediately remove it from the playable pool until such a time that it is fixed, which is exceptional considering for those who weren't there for it, there used to be a bug for Quinton's perk, which its name escapes me. It wasn't called like Wake Up, it was called some shit. Anyway, basically it gave an action speed increase to a couple of things, really niche things like opening a gate. For some reason, the action speeds applied to everything, and it got abused for at least a week, I think. And it was just a straight week of I had SWFs just running around abusing this perk. And what it meant is it included like a 20% increase in action speed when vaulting windows. Meaning that things that weren't infinites became infinites. Like, it was a nightmare. So this kill switch is a very, very welcome change. And Behavior have made a very good decision here. And that's where the good decisions end. So, let me have a quick look. Plague has been semi-buffed. It's really, like, negligible and really not interesting, so I wouldn't really look at it too much. But basically, she's had a little bit of a buff, just more of a tweak than a buff. But she has had a buff. And that's the good stuff. So the bad stuff, Deathslinger has been nerfed. And when I say nerfed, I mean nerfed and thrice nerfed. He can no longer do aim down sighting. So there's a slowdown penalty to him raising his gun and firing now, so he can immediately aim down the scope and fire. There is a cooldown, and there is also, I believe, a cooldown on him lowering his gun as well. Now, the upshot is that he gets a minor movement increase while aiming down the sight, but that's absolutely nothing compared to the fact that the Deathslinger's only strength is that he can instantly fire. Deathslinger's going to get bullied, is my initial response. Good Deathslingers, maybe not. But good survivors will bully the crap out of this killer. And if anyone remembers when the Huntress was initially released, I said Deathslinger is a crappier version of the Huntress, which is something I'm going to come into in just a second. But first, let's also have a quick look. They have changed add-ons as well. So there's a whole new bunch of across-the-board add-on changes. I've collated a bit of information of my favorite ones, guys, just for you. Because Behavior, in true Behavior style, have done some really stupid add-on changes. So it's just that it's like they don't understand their own game. So, first things first, Trapper did get a buff, a very, very minor buff, and I should point this out. There's less RNG in his power now, in the way the trap spawn is consistent, and he starts with an extra trap at base kit. So he can now carry 2 traps by default, not 1, which is a very, very nice buff. But it's still only teensy-weensy for one of the weaker killers in the game. Now, the add-on changes to him, to Spirit, to Plague, and I think there's some other killers as well. They're not so great. So here's my favorite ones. From Trapper, his trap resets, so it rearms itself after a survivor escapes from the trap. We currently have an add-on where they just reset when they are disarmed. Great, very strong. Now, if a trap resets whenever you escape, you could just re-disarm it. It's 2 seconds after it, just 2 seconds after you escape. So a survivor can escape, wait 2 seconds, disarm it, and they've just nullified your entire add-on. Just like that. Just like that. But also, if a survivor's, like, walking into it and escaping, the penalization is really just time more than anything else, and it's not really enough of a payoff considering the trapper has to place his traps and has really slow early game pressure. Now, also, if you compare it to the other add-on he's got, the way it works, it just doesn't make sense because the survivor immediately knows that the trap is there. So I don't really know. I think it's pointless. But also, he has this other new... This is a purple add-on, so please do buckle your fucking seatbelts here. Okay, he has a new add-on where he has all his traps at the start of the match, but he then can't pick up traps. No fucking joke. So once you place down the trap, it is there permanently. Were you high, dev team, when you came up with this? Were you? Have you ever played Trapper? It's fucking stupid. It's absolutely fucking stupid. Now, obviously, Trapper can rearm traps without picking them up now, so I presume that'll factor into it, but that just means that after he's placed his 6 to 8 traps, if a survivor cottons on that he can't pick up traps, you're kind of fucked, because survivors know where all of your traps are, and a coordinated team is going to ruin you. But I'll skip through those, because I take a little bit of time on those. Spirit's add-ons have been changed. She now has one where she returns to her husk post-phase. So you can phase, go all the way over there, and then when you finish your phase, you snap back to where you were. I'm not really sure what the point of that is, because you can't really do anything. So unless I've misread that one, which I don't think I have, then it doesn't really make sense. And even if it did do something, like you press the... So basically, if I remember correctly, if you press the active button whilst you're in the hunt, it automatically ends it. You know what? I might have a quick look and just double check this one. Because I have notes. Would you believe I have notes for today? Those being organized. Where did... Here we go. Yeah. During the hunt, use the active ability button to return to the husk and end the haunt. Okay, so... It's sort of like the nurse's blink and then... the blink back thing she has. I think that's the thing. Fucking pointless, really. It just doesn't really have enough use to it. And then it also has another meme one. Exploding husk. When you finish the haunt, the husk on the spirit explodes and blocks windows. For 4 seconds. 4 seconds. So there could be some meme usage out of this. As a spirit, I could see me having some mind game potential. Where I phase... just long enough to make the survivor move out of position, let go, the husk explodes, blocks the window, I can then use it as an opportunity to catch them off guard, but it costs a whole add-on slot, and it's a bit of a meme, and survivors will cotton on within the first minute or two of the game. Meme add-on number 3. 2, 3, fuck if I know. In keeping with behavior, they have done another one of those disable powers add-ons for the Plague. The Plague now has it where the Vile Purge doesn't do anything to survivors. Sort of like... I can't even think of a good... Like Hatchet's not damaging survivors with the Huntress as a meme. Just go home, behavior. You're drunk. You're drunk. And this brings us on to the main point, and the main reason I decided to do a developer update today, guys, because I really do want to highlight where I think the direction of Dead by Daylight is going. If this is essentially your too long didn't read, is they are nerfing Spirit. Spirit is considered one of the top 3 killers in the game. In some cases, especially on console, considered the top killer in the game. Not sure I agree with it, but it is very much a sentiment. And they are nerfing her. Now, the reason they've done this, as far as we can tell, isn't because she's overperforming. The available statistics we've last had, which I believe were from 2019, because obviously the pandemic happened, the available statistics suggested that the Spirit wasn't overperforming. She was pretty much exactly where she should be. Now, they decided to nerf her anyway. And what they've done is, they have given her directional sound, which means you now know at all times when the Spirit is phasing. If you're out of her terror radius, you hear her phase, that's normal. If you're in her terror radius, or specifically within 24 meters of the Spirit, you will hear a directional sound of where she is phasing, which means you don't just know that she's phasing, you know where she's phasing from. A very, very problematic point, because not only do you now know that she's phasing, which I'll get into in a second, but also you undo one of the key parts of the spirit's power, which is you don't know where she's coming from. Because that's kind of the point. It's like the Wraith is invisible, and the spirit is invisible too. It's kind of a part of their power, and they've essentially nerfed it quite hard. Now, they did have a second change. You might not have heard this. There is actually some new news on this. They did have a second change where there's visual feedback as well. The spirit, when she's in phase, you will see little dust marks on the ground where she's running. So sort of like the dust gets kicked up underneath her as she phases across the map. Now, that would mean that you could actually physically pinpoint where the spirit is mid-phase, which is insane. Okay, now, when the spirit was originally released, she was considered quite weak due to directional sound, but also a visual indicator undoes so much of her potential power. It is unreal. Absolutely unreal. And so, luckily, there was such backlash about this that they are potentially holding off on bringing this. This is officially confirmed that they will not be dropping that with the PTB. They are holding off, seeing how she manages in the PTB, and then if they feel like she's still overperforming, then she will get those visual indicators as well. Intrigued. I personally think this is an indicator of the direction Dead by Daylight is going. Now, for those of you who don't know, obviously I no longer have time to stream, and I don't have as much time to play Dead by Daylight by extension, so I've lost track of Dead by Daylight a little bit. You know, I used to have 2,600 plus hours on the game. I'm a very, very big advocate of the game. I do really enjoy it, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. However, this marks a very, very clear step, and that's why I decided to do this video today. So here's your TLDR. They nerfed Deathslinger. They nerfed Spirit. Neither of these killers were overperforming, but what did these two killers have in common? Survivors feel that they are unfair to play against and that they are uncounterable, especially in the Spirit's case, where people often refer to playing against the Spirit as a coin flip or a coin toss. Now, what this is suggesting is that Behavior are more than comfortable nerfing killers because survivors feel like they're difficult. I will let that settle for a second. Basically, while I disagree with the sentiment that Behavior are either killer-sided or survivor-sided, this marks a very, very clear step in their developing direction by virtue of the fact that killers who aren't demonstrably overpowered, though some people might say Spirit is, killers who aren't demonstrably overpowered are being nerfed because people are unable to counter them. Not because of skill, but because they refuse to learn. A lot of people are very angry about Deathslinger. I played against Deathslingers in rank 1, and I personally never have fucking issues with them. I appreciate that that's me as a fringe case, but I have never once had an issue with Deathslinger, ever. Especially once you understand the way his power works. If you can get him to shoot over obstacles and stuff like that, you waste so much of his time. So much of his time that it's unreal, and you just... He isn't a threat to me or to anyone. But unfortunately, they've increased his terror radius, so now he's no longer stealthy. They've made these changes where he can no longer quickscope, and in return, given him a little sprinkling of a movement speed boost. So, this is probably one of the first clear indicators, I think, of Behavior obviously pandering, and specifically pandering to those who say that, oh, this game is too hard. Now, for those of you who've also paid a lot of attention to me, will know that at rank 1, I hold the position that Killer is weaker than Survivor. Now, obviously, rank 1 doesn't exist in the same way it used to, and with skill-based matchmaking, which is also a fucking mare, with skill-based matchmaking, things are a little bit different, but at the top ranks of play in Dead by Daylight, the killers are severely lacking. So the solution Behavior appear to have gone with is nerf them so much that there's only variety for killers at top rank, because they're all equally shit. I personally am very disappointed with these changes overall, especially with Spirit. I think, as I've always been a Spirit main at heart, these are going to be some painful, painful changes. You have to bear in mind, if you don't play Spirit that much, that the Spirit can't see you. They can see scratch marks, but they can't see you. They have some visual indicators, so they can see foliage moving and certain cues in the environment. However, none of those really matter that much for a killer, because a killer has a lot less to work with. So, as a killer, at rank 1, or top ranks, being the killer is a reactive role. Now, the reason the Spirit got a lot of backlash is because the Spirit put the onus back on the Survivor of being the reactive role. Survivors had to react to how the Spirit played, whereas with M1 killers, you have to react to how the Survivors play. And so a lot of people felt uncomfortable with this, and I think that's probably one of the leading causes for changes coming. However, this really does absolutely throttle the basic way in which the Spirit operates, especially when, if you look at it from a coin toss perspective, M1 killers, every time you mind game an LT wall, every time you mind game a long wall short wall, every time you mind game the killer shack, it is up to the killer to win a coin toss, and they have to win that coin toss multiple times over the course of a match with 4 different survivors. Meanwhile, certain players get upset because they can't win a coin toss against the power roll every once in a fucking while. Honestly, so my general position at the moment is Behaviour are trying to polish a turd, and then trying to make us eat it. And you can't polish a turd, Behaviour. Believe you me, you cannot polish a fucking turd. And so rather than make the rest of your game a festering turd, how about you listen to some feedback and start pushing for a more balanced game? I don't know. So guys, this is where I sit on everything at the moment. I'm really hoping to get some more Dead by Daylight games up and running on YouTube soon. The issue with the new skill-based matchmaking is queue times are upwards of 10 minutes in my time zone when I have time to record, and I can't spend 10 minutes waiting for a match for the match to be over in 5 minutes because I get sweat squads, and I'm getting a lot of those at the moment. And so I hope to have some more videos up for you soon. In the meantime, guys, if you do have any other games you would potentially like me to play or would like to see me play on YouTube, please do let me know, because they'll be a lot easier for me to provide content for. So please do let me know in the comments. But guys, thank you so much for coming and listening to me have an absolute fucking meltdown for a grand total of, where's my timer? 27 minutes! I didn't expect this to be 27 minutes long. Yeesh. Guys, thank you so much for swinging by and listening to this. If you do have any questions, you can come and find us on the Discord. That's down in the description as well. If you want to hear any more of my opinions, you can ask me there too. But a lot of upcoming changes, a lot of disappointing changes, especially when you consider the release of Pinhead being utter fucking garbage. No offense to anyone who likes Pinhead. I think he's very mediocre. Same with Nemesis, very mediocre. Trickster, dog shite. A lot of these changes suggest that Behaviour no longer understand how to balance their game, and instead of stopping and reassessing, they are just pushing on full speed ahead. So this puts us in a little bit of a difficult situation, but for the time being, I'm still enjoying Dead by Daylight, and I look forward to providing more content for you guys. As always with YouTube, guys, please do not forget to comment below, click that subscribe button, and click that like button as well. Thank you so much for coming over here and checking out this video, and I shall see you in the next trial.